सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Chapter The State of Self-Realization. The topic His Extrinsic Conduct.
படிக்கலாமா?
Yes.
Is extrinsic contact. Am I audible?
Yes, take it.
Self-realized souls have demonstrated a wide range of extrinsic contact. Their post-realization lives have been distinct and different, yet they all remain intrinsically as the one self, like the brilliant spectrum of colors emerging from colorless light. Each color exhibits a beauty of its own. So does every enlightened one display a distinct magnificence, beautiful and graceful. Their actions, however, differ widely, though they all spring from the depth of spiritual enlightenment, from the one defined self. Thus, you find a marked difference in the external manifestation of divine souls from time immemorial. Even the recent stages like Swami Ramatirtha, Saint Tyagaraja, or Ramana Maharishi were poles apart in their manifestations. Ramana Maharishi observed silence practically all his lifetime. He hardly moved out of his small town of Tiruvannamalai in South India, while Saint Tyagaraja gave out the divine Carnatic music. He sang all through his life. Distinct from these two, Swami Ramatirtha was dynamic. He enthralled the world with his electrifying discourses on Vedanta. You ought not to judge sages and saints from what you see them act. Their expressions in the world may confuse you, and you would perhaps gather wrong impressions. Perfection in a human is assessed not from his external action, but from internal attunement with the Supreme Self. The test of perfection is his merger with the inner self, not his expression. Whatever be the mode of living, the self-realized leads humanity through the path of righteousness to the goal of enlightenment. Some sages have lived in seclusion, observing austerity, while others lived in company amidst material comfort. However, both were totally detached, disinterested in their mode of living. Reveling in the bliss of realization, their lives Their lives only promoted universal welfare, redeemed humanity. The enlightened one lives in his home with his family, amidst his environment, with perfect objectivity. Established in the divinity within, he remains absolutely detached. He takes the position of God. He is in the world, yet out of it, like a lotus leaf unattached to the water all around. He looks at every being and everything happening in the world from an impersonal angle, as you would watch a movie on the screen. When you look upon the world as a detached witness, the world becomes a source of enjoyment. But when you get involved, entangled in the affairs of the world, the same world becomes a source of misery. The enlightened is ever positioned as a Sakshi witness, never attached to anything, never enmeshed in the world. He stands out as a picture of renunciation, reveling in the absolute bliss. The ignoramuses do not look into people's intrinsic nature. They are carried away by external demonstrations. They make a great blunder in considering pseudo spiritual person as evolved souls. Some of these charlatans perform all sorts of fantastic feats. They are known as the spiritualists who read a book blindfolded, repeat another's thoughts, communicate with the departed souls, demonstrate such sensational acts, all that does not render them wholly spiritual. They are just as worldly as others, except for having learned a special art. It may be admired as a skill technique. There is nothing more to it. A spiritualist can claim no more divinity, knowledge of the self than a brilliant technician can. Some Atha yogis are known to have buried themselves alive in a coffin. Others have swallowed razor blades, drawn needles through the skin, performed many such feats. But these men are far from being spiritual, and their feats have nothing to do with the divine state brought about by the knowledge of the self. There have been instances of such men having committed crimes, even convicted by the state. However, history has shown some true sages possessing this art, the skill of performing great feats. They learnt it only to draw the people to educate them in the knowledge of Brahman, the supreme God. However, the knowledge of this art is no way related to their spiritual status. Self realization is acclaimed as attainable in one's lifetime, and self realized souls are those who have merged with the supreme unifying self. If that be so, how is it that they do not conduct themselves uniformly? Why is it? Why is there so much difference in the lives of the self realized? This has baffled many thinkers. It's only the great Swami Ramatirtha who has given the most lucid, perfectly convincing explanations of this phenomenon. The Swami described the life of self-realized sage with the help of the following law of physics.
Yeah, before we get into this, the few points that he is talking about here. You see the great masters having extremely different lifestyle. The way they live life is so distinct and different from one to the other. All of them are acclaimed as self-realized, but their conduct is varied. So importantly, we accept the fact that there will not be a uniform conduct. That is accepted first. That is understood and accepted that there will not be a uniformity in their conduct. When we say there will not be a uniformity in their conduct means different expressions will be there. Different expressions. The example that he is giving here is Ramatirtha, Tyagaraja, or Ramana Maharshi, where one person, it is very difficult to make a Ramana Maharshi talk. It is very difficult to stop Ramatirtha from talking. And you see Ramana who is and you see a Tyagaraja who is entirely different entirely different. So, and yet all of them are acclaimed as self-realized great men. So, first thing that is accepted, first thing that is understood and accepted is the conduct will, their nature, their conduct will differ. Second important point is self-realization will not confer any mysticism. So, second thing that they remove is any association of mysticism is negated. Invariably, spirituality or a great master is always associated with some kind of a mystical power. A spiritual master is seen as a savior. A spiritual person is one who is seen as a savior, he is seen as an avatar of Purusha. So when you see somebody as a savior, somebody as an avatar of Purusha, long back, you go to a spiritual master and ask, I'm having diabetes. What do you do? What will he say? Follow the medication, do exercises, have proper, follow that. But then when you ask this question to the spiritual person, what is your expectation? What is your hope? He is going to come up with something mystical that it is going to get sorted out. Second factor is there is mysticism and self-realization have no correlation. Mysticism and self-realization has no correlation. I have said this any number of times. Ramana Maharshi said it so beautifully. You will come to a wise man and you will not know what to ask, he said. Then you will come to a self-realized person, but you will not know what to ask him. In fact, you will end up asking things which is totally irrelevant. So why it is so is because enlightenment or spiritual status is always associated with an element of supernatural, mysticism, something unique, something which ordinary person cannot do. A person walked across the river when it is full of water. He walked across the river and came to see Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and he was boasting of his power to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa asked him how many years it took you to master this. He said 19 years it took you to. He said 19 years it took me to master this. He asked one of his students, how much does it cost to cross the river by boat? How much does it cost? They said 50 paisa. 19 years, your 19 years of training is worth 50 paisa, he said. You could have given 50 paisa and just taken the boat and come across. Why do you have to spend 19 years? Now, that doesn't confer any spiritual status. Second big problem that people have in understanding enlightened masters is they always associate an element of, you can call it supernatural, you can call it mysticism, any word you can use. Incidentally, some men also demonstrated it, and it is not without reason that people developed this belief. One or two demonstrated this, therefore what has happened, that has become the standard for assessing the spiritual status. When Jesus Christ was put on cross, the whole town gathered to see that. The whole town gathered. Why did they gather? They all thought he is the savior, and he is the savior means I don't know what they thought. He will come out of the He will come out of the cross flying. I don't know what they thought when they went to see his crucifixion. And when they saw him dying like any ordinary person on the cross, the whole lot left, saying that he's not the savior. Because always spiritual growth is associated with some mystical supernatural power, which he says you do not associate these conduct. You don't associate that with spiritual status. First is their conduct will vary and differ. Second is do not associate any powers. A spiritualist can claim no more divinity than a brilliant technician can. You take the image of CT scan and see, it all looks the same, no? Even if you take an X-ray and see, it all looks uh, where you think there is no fracture, you may think there is a fracture. Where there is actual fracture, you won't even know that that is the, the fracture. And that man sees that and he is able to identify with that. A brilliant technician. He says a spiritualist can claim no more divinity, knowledge of self, than a brilliant technician. These are all a special skill, a special technique. They spend lots of time acquiring this, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody because it is against the law. It is against the law of karma. So they may, even if a person has some, first of all, there is no such thing called these kind of things don't exist at all. Assuming that if there is such a thing, it is against the law of, is against the law of karma. Meaning, you do something and you go and fall at that man's feet, and that man can protect you. And for him to protect you, you give something in return. It's a very good deal, no? He says, second thing that you need to understand is you don't confer any mysticism or any supernatural thing in relation to the enlightenment. The third is their inner objectivity is incomprehensible. The third point. You see their extrinsic conduct as anybody else. They live like anybody else. What is difficult to comprehend is their objectivity. He is in the world and yet out of it. That combination is difficult to comprehend, especially when you see a spiritual master who is in fact, all of them are like that. In fact, all spiritual men, human beings, men means including women also, men or women doesn't make any difference. All spiritual person carry the inner state is the same. What is the inner state that is common to all of them? The inner state that is common to all of them is their objectivity, their detachment. Never attached to anything. Even the activity that they do there, they don't have any value for the activity that they do also. Because why they don't have a value? Value comes when there is a reality. Value will not be there when you understand the value comes only when you give it a reality. Playing with monopoly money versus real money. Nowadays it's called monopoly money, no? when I was a child, it used to be called trade. It will not be called monopoly money. It will be called trade. And the trade game at that time, the famous game which I remember playing, and even now I would like to play. But then in reality, I would like to do that now. It's called Bombay Trade, you know. Has anybody played that game? Huh? Has anybody at least seen that? Ah, Kabada, correct. Yes. Yeah, correct. It's called Bombay Trade, where you can buy the whole of Malabar Hills, where you can buy the whole of Chowpatty, you can buy the whole of Marine Drive, and you can build a house in that, and somebody will come and pay rent also, and then you can go bankrupt and lose. You can borrow from the bank, you can pledge, all this you can do, no? You play the game, monopoly money, what value you have to that? You, you, you will have no value to that at all. Why? Because there is no reality to it. There is no reality to it. Vijayarangan, ஜெயிலுக்கு போயிருக்கலோ? Looks like he has gone to the prison many a times. Yeah. Yes or no, Vijayarangan? Have you gone to prison? Real prison or real prisoner? Don't tell us why you went. So, in the game, very good. In the game only. You can go to prison also there. All this you will have no value. Why? Because you understand all of that as there is no reality to it. In the same way, they have no reality to the world. Since they don't have any reality to the world, whatsoever they do, they have no,
Value.
they have no value. They have no value. Whatsoever they do, they have no value. The enlightened is ever positioned as a Sakshi, witness. And the Sakshi is an incomprehensible thing from outside. Because from outside, if you see, they would be as involved as anybody else. Act as though you are possessed with desire, Arjuna, but don't have desire. This is how they live. Here, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives his advice. Act as though you are
Possessed.
possessed with desire. Act as though you are obsessed with desire, but be free from desire. Don't have a, so from outside, if you look at it, it will be appearing as though there will not be a difference between a person, a desire ridden person acting, and this person acting. But the inner state is completely different. And that inner state is incomprehensible. What is that inner state? The inner state is perfect equanimity. So, three factors first. What are the three things? Their extrinsic conduct will differ. You go to the and you read the variety of the Upanishadic masters, you can see the external conduct there, the the different masters from different background. You can see the entire variety there. You read all the Upanishadic masters. On the one hand, you find a master like Yagnavalkya or a Gautama teaching the son Swetaketu. On the other hand, you find a person like Butcher. On the other hand, you find a very seemingly very ordinary housewife who is a Brahmagyani. And then you find Ajatashatru, the king, sitting and teaching. So you see that you see the whole lot of the a variety, meaning extrinsic conduct would differ from person to person. So to expect a uniformity is meaningless, or there is a uniformity which is incomprehensible. That's what he said. There is a uniformity, and that uniformity is incomprehensible. What is that uniformity? The inner nature. What is that inner nature? Sakshi. Also, it does not make them holy or spiritual because of certain fantastic supernatural acts they perform. Technically, it is called Siddhi powers. Technically, it is called Siddhi powers. And all religion, irrespective of the background, believes in the greatness of the master is always associated with the greatness of the master is always associated with the Siddhi powers that he displays, that he demonstrates. Who will fall for that? Who will fall for that? One who is greedy, one who wants a quick fix solution to their problems will fall for that. There is a Gautam Buddha walking on the street. And then there is a street magician walking on the street selling the talisman, Dayat. The crowd will go to whom? Whom does the crowd, the crowd will go to whom? The crowd will go only, the crowd will not go to Gautam Buddha. The crowd will go to the man who's selling the Dayat, the talisman. Why? Because this man is promising something. No, he's promising something. He's telling you that he's giving you some promise, some hope. You go to Gautam Buddha, you go to Ramana Maharshi, you go to a Krishna, or you go to a Shankaracharya, they say, raise yourself by yourself, lift yourself by yourself. Nobody can do anything. What happened to my father after death? Where is he, sir? Now, who knows where he is now? Wherever he was before his birth, he went there now. How will we know? And then the person says, wait, I will speak to him and I will get back to you. Nah. The person will actually, and they actually believe in that. Sometimes they talk in your presence, sometimes they talk in your absence. Yeah. Most of the time they will do in your absence, sometimes they will do in your presence also they will do. Some will get possessed by gods also, isn't it? Yeah. God will come and descend on them also. God will descend on them, and our family deity is this Shasta. So every year it's a ritual in the family that 45 days of penance and vratam and all that, and then that puja and all we do every year. It was a every year ritual. It used to be. When he was alive, my father was a very big guru, and he stopped all that after a while. Thank God he stopped. He was a very big guru because he has visited the number of years you visit, you become the guru. So people come and call him for the puja. If he has 100 invitations, 90 invitations he will not take. He will not go. He'll say illa illa something. He will some excuse he will give. Some of the pujas that he has, this Lord Ayyappa pujas, I have gone because I used to go with him. Please remember. The singing will start, the drumming will start, everything will start. After after 2.5 hours, what will happen? Has anybody seen that? What will happen? Ayyappa is getting ready to, Shasta is getting ready to descend. At that, at that point of time, I have seen he will get up and he will go and give one slap to that person. Small children are here, don't scare them with all these noises. And that fellow will stay. So quietly that fellow will. I used to think, when we come back, I said, no, why did you? Definitely, Lord Ayyappa is going to punish. Trance. These kind of trances, these kind of spiritual things, people believe in, and that has got nothing to do with spiritual status. Very important to understand it. That has got nothing to do with spiritual status. Who falls for all these? Who falls for all this? The person who is looking for, a person who's weak, a person who's looking for instant solutions are the ones who fall for these kind of tricks. Therefore, the third point that he's saying here is, do not get carried away by these expressions, for this has got nothing to do with their status of self-realization. And then he starts the very important point that we are going to discuss. The important point that we are going to discuss is self-realization is acclaimed as attainable in one's lifetime, and self-realized souls are those who have merged with the totality, reality. Why they do not conduct themselves uniformly? Why there is so much of variation? Why there is so much of variation? A very simple, straightforward explanation is given through this pulley diagram that we are going to study now. And it is based on the principle, technically it is prarabdha vasana. We'll be studying both. Based on the differences in conduct is because of their prarabdha vasana. We'll study that. Before that, a more simpler explanation, which is in the form of the pulley example. First, we will study that, and then we will see the explanation. Start from the paragraph. Self-realization is acclaimed as attainable in one's lifetime.
The circle in this figure, the circle in the figure is a pulley. Pass a fine thread over the pulley.
Shankar, start with the previous paragraph.
Self-realization is acclaimed as attainable in one's lifetime. And self-realized souls are those who have merged with the supreme unifying self. If that be so, how is it they do not conduct themselves uniformly? Why is there so much difference in the lives of self-realized? This has baffled many thinkers. It's only the great Swami Ramatita who has given the most lucid, perfectly convincing explanation of this phenomenon. The Swami described the life of self-realized with the help of the following law of physics. The circle in this figure is a pulley. Pass a fine thread over the pulley. Fasten two weights of 10 and 6 to the ends of the thread. Add an additional weight of 4 to the smaller weight. 6 plus 4 equal 10. The weights are balanced, 10 on each side. They remain motionless. Now, remove the weight 4. Then there is 6 alone on one side and 10 on the other. The weights are no longer balanced. As a result, 10 will go down and 6 will rise. After a lapse of 1 second, replace the weight 4 alongside 6. The weights equalize again on both sides. What would be the result of that equalization? The layperson believes that they would become stationary, but that's not so. They will continue moving. Their velocity or the speed will be 8 feet per second. In the beginning, when the weights were equal, they were at rest. The original rest was preserved. But when the motion started and the weights equalized later, the motion does not stop. At the end of the first second, the resultant velocity will be 8 feet per second. If you let the weights 6 and 10 move for 2 seconds and add the weight 4 to balance them at the end of the second second, then the resultant velocity will be 16 feet per second. If you let the same weight continue their motion for 3 consecutive seconds and add 4 to the balance them at the end of the third second, then the resultant velocity will be 24 feet per second. At the end of the 4 seconds, it will be 32 feet per second, etc. Studying the above data, you will notice if the weights are kept unequal, the result is that at the close of each second, there is an increase in the velocity 8 plus the original velocity. So the velocity that has already been acquired remains the same. If the weights are equal in the beginning, before the motion was started, they will be at rest. If the weights are equalized at the end of the first second, after velocity 8 has been acquired, then the equalizing the weights will prevent any further increase in velocity beyond 8. If, however, the weights are equalized at the end of the second second, after velocity 16 has been acquired, then equalizing the weights will prevent any further increase of velocity beyond 16, etc. The increase of velocity at the end of the second is called acceleration. Therefore, after equalizing the weights, there can be no further acceleration. Go over this experiment carefully. You will notice that there is no force acting when weights are equalized. If there is no force acting upon the bodies, there can be no change produced in the state of rest or motion. Thus, equalizing the weights at the very beginning, when bodies are at rest, the original rest will be preserved as there is no force acting upon them. But equalizing the weights after the bodies have already acquired motion, then, according to this law, the original acquired motion will remain. The equalizing of weights does not disturb the original rest or the original acquired velocity. The equalizing will only prevent further change in the velocity. Therefore, equalizing weights at the beginning will keep the bodies at rest, while equalizing at the end of the first second, the original acquired velocity of 8 will remain without further increase. And equalizing at the end of the second, the original acquired velocity of 16 will remain without further increase, etc. Now apply this law to the life of a self-realized person. An individual is born in the world with a portion of aggregate of his vasanas and manifest desires. The aggregate vasanas are known as sanchita. A portion of the sanchita which needs immediate manifestation forces itself out to be born as a human being. That bulk of vasanas as individual is born with is termed as prarabdha vasanas. The prarabdha is the original acquired vasanas which get exhausted only upon the death of the individual. But the individual can, within his lifetime, exhaust the entire Sanchita when he attains self-realization. Thereafter, there is no individual propulsion for his life's activity. Realization equalizes the disparity of demand and supply. The individual makes his demands, the world makes the supplies to meet the demands. The imbalance created by the inequality between his demand and supply lasts until self-realization. The unfulfilled desires cause the motion of life. When the Sanchita, the aggregate of all unmanifest desire, is exhausted, there is no more motion generated, no further acceleration. But the original acquired velocity remains. That's the state of self-realized. He lives on the because of his original acquired prarabdha vasanas, desires. Like a car moving at 10 kilometers an hour runs out of fuel, it has no more acceleration as the fuel is exhausted, but its motion continues because of the already acquired velocity. So too do the self-realized function differently because of the different prarabdha vasanas they are born with. If the original prarabdha was little, feeble, then his manifestation upon realization would be the same. Perhaps like Ramana Maharshi. If the prarabdha was of music, then he would perhaps turn out to be Saint Tyagaraja. And if he made up of erudition and scholarship, he would emerge as Swami Ramatita.
Now, assuming that you all have the text, follow that carefully, the pulley. A human being is has a bunch of the total vasanas is called sanchita. Out of that sanchita, some needs some needs fructification, some needs fruition, and that sum will give birth, and that is called prarabdha, and that is called prarabdha vasana, and that prarabdha vasana gets exhausted only at the time of death. Now what he is saying is, what has happened to the self-realized person? He has exhausted his sanchita vasanas. But what remains is the prarabdha with which he is born. And the external conduct would depend upon the prarabdha. If the prarabdha is of music, then it will be like a Ramana Maharshi, sorry, Tyagaraja. If it be like erudition and scholarship, it would be like a Ramatirtha. So, what is the life of the self-realized person? The life of a self-realized person is prarabdha vasanas. In the layperson's case, he goes on acquiring vasanas, acquiring momentum. In the case of the self-realized person, he is just exhausting the already acquired momentum. That exhausting that already acquired momentum, and that part of it is beautifully explained by this pulley. So, if a person has a feeble prarabdha, activity would be very, very less. If a person has a powerful prarabdha, then that made of erudition and scholarship, it would be one of that. If the prarabdha is one of business, it will be business. If the prarabdha is one of running the kingdom, it would be running the kingdom. If the prarabdha is one of teaching, it would be teaching. So you find the variety of conduct, you see the distinct conduct of different masters, all because of the difference of prarabdha vasana. And what is prarabdha? Prarabdha vasana is that by definition which has to be experienced to exhaust. Sanchita is that which can be exhausted through knowledge and tapas. Prarabdha has to be exhausted only by physical experience. And these great masters are known by their prarabdha vasanas. So you see the differences because of the difference of prarabdha. The sanchita vasanas, which is the aggregate of all unmanifest desires, is exhausted. There is no more acceleration, no more motion generated. Where there is no more action, where there is no more acceleration, what happens? The original acceleration that they have gained will continue for a while. When we say for a while, it can be a few months, it can be a few years, it can be a few decades also. We don't know that. But there is a period where they continue because of the original velocity. Like the car moving at a speed, when the fuel is exhausted, continue to run for a few hundred meters because of the original velocity. Similarly, these great men act because of their prarabdha vasana. It's called prarabdha vasana. The concept of prarabdha vasana explains the life of the self-realized person post-realization before physical death. For what are we trying to study? We are trying to understand the life of the self-realized person after self-realization before death. That period is what we are studying. And that period differs from person to person because of the different prarabdha vasanas. Because of the difference of prarabdha vasanas, you will find them different, you will find different manifestations, you will find different expressions. Now, what does that mean? Out of sanchita comes prarabdha. Number one, out of sanchita comes prarabdha. Why we call it a name called prarabdha? Why can't we simply call it as a vasana? Why do we have to distinguish it between sanchita and non-sanchita prarabdha? The difference is prarabdha has two properties. One is it has to be experienced physically. You have to go through that experience. The instruments has to necessarily experience that. Secondly, gets exhausted only upon the death of the individual. Only upon the death, the prarabdha vasana gets exhausted. But what is self-realization then? Self-realization is a state of having eradicated all vasanas. When we say having eradicated all vasanas, what has he eradicated? Sanchita is eradicated completely. The Sanchita Vasana is wiped out completely. Sanchita Vasana, Sanchita can be wiped out through knowledge and understanding. Prarabdha Vasana has to be exhausted by experience. So, what do you see in a self realized person? There is no Sanchita, but only Prarabdha, and according to the differences in Prarabdha, their lifestyle, their extrinsic conduct, their external conduct also differs. So you find one master being very active, another master not at all doing anything, another master is so normal that you won't even know that you won't even know that he is a Brahmagyani. You won't even know that. All these is because of the differences of the prarabdha. Now, Sanchita means the aggregate desires that doesn't need manifestation and can be eradicated. It doesn't require manifestation, it doesn't require expression, and also it can be eradicated. That is called Sanchita Vasana. If you do not attend to it and eradicate it, it will gather momentum and it will definitely start manifesting. And when it starts manifesting, it would become part of the prarabdha. So what does knowledge do? It will not allow it to gather momentum so that it requires a manifestation. It will not gather momentum. It will not allow it to gather momentum. No further acceleration. With this idea, if you read the example of the pulley, it becomes, if you read the example of the pulley, it becomes easy. Where there is an imbalance in weight and you balance it, the layperson thinks it will come to a standstill immediately. No. But according to the law of physics, he says it will not immediately come to stationary point. There will be some movement still, and that movement is dependent upon upon what the movement is dependent upon the original acquired velocity, and that is called prarabdha vasana. It will move up and down for a few seconds or for a few minutes, and then it will stand, and then it will come to a standstill. And then when it comes to a standstill, we know that the prarabdha is also exhausted. For all practical purposes, as far as the person is concerned, he has exhausted the vasanas. That person has exhausted all the vasanas as far as that person is concerned. The differences is only when the person see a various variety of expressions and they do not know how to understand how can there be this variety of expression. As far as that self-realized person is concerned, there is no Sanchita, there is no Prarabdha, there is no nothing. He only says, all vasanas are gone and I have become free already. He says, I am a Jivan Mukta. I am liberated from Jivatvam while being a Jiva. While being a Jiva, I am liberated from this Jivatvam. That's what Jivan Mukti is. That's what The self-realized person asserts, claims. As a lay person, we see distinct variations. Now, how do we account for that? How do we explain that? Prarabdha Vasana is an explanation for that. Also, it is very important because if self-realization is the stage of where vasanas are exhausted, how is he still alive then? What is keeping him alive? For the chronology of action says, vasana is the prime mover behind action. So if he says, all my vasanas are gone, then what is it that is fueling the actions? Vasanas only. For the chronology of action, the law of karma has stated very clearly that it is vasana that drives an action. If self-realization is a state of exhaustion of all vasanas, then how is he acting? That also has to be answered. No. How is he? How is he functioning then? That is because of his prarabdha vasanas, which is originally acquired, which doesn't add up. You can't add up to the prarabdha. You can't accelerate your prarabdha. You can't add something or delete something from it. You simply go through that. To put it very simply, prarabdha is like you have you have earned 100 rupees and that's it. You can't earn a paisa further. All that you have to do is what? All that you do now is exhaust that 100. That is prarabdha vasana. In the case of a lay person, we can add, delete, add, delete, add, delete. In his case, what is the difference? In our case, addition and deletion. In his case, in the case of an enlightened person, there is only okay, delete தான் இல்லையா? One day over na, one day over. That's it. The balance is reducing towards zero. That is called prarabdha vasana. And this will vary, and you can't have a uniform prarabdha vasana. You can't have a uniformity in prarabdha vasana. Therefore, you find different masters having different lifestyle. Different masters having different expressions, having different lifestyle, different ways, different means. But one thing in common in everybody. What is it? What is it that is common? They are fully established in the fact. Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya. They are fully established in the fact. Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. That's all. There is only Brahman. There is nothing other than Brahman, and they are fully established in that. For a period of time, the layperson sees them being alive and doing actions like any one of us. We get hungry, he also gets hungry. We get thirsty, he also gets thirsty. We get sick,
He also gets.
he also gets sick. From what is the difference, sir? Realization is you should not get thirsty, you should not feel hungry, you should not feel sick at all. How is it possible? Part of the prarabdha, everything would be exactly like any other person, but there is a fundamental difference. What is the fundamental difference? In our case, we can add up the breath. In his case, his breath is fixed. Ivladam breath. He can only, and it goes on, and it
Reduce.
goes on diminishing. It goes on reducing. So maybe for 1 week, maybe for 3 years, maybe for decades together. You see, Ramatirtha had a very short ministry. Adi Shankaracharya also had a very short ministry. A person like Ramana Maharshi had a very long period. Depends. Therefore, the extrinsic conduct is based on what? Prarabdha Vasana. And there will not be uniformity of Prarabdha Vasana. Therefore, you find different masters having different lifestyles. And do not get confused, carried away by the difference in their lifestyle. Do not get carried away and do not be misled because of the difference in their lifestyle. One person lives with the family, another person becomes a sannyasi, another person will be a brahmachari, will not get married at all in the first place. Some gets married and leave. So you find all these distinct, varieties and variations because of the difference of prarabdha. Therefore, the extrinsic conduct. What is the extrinsic conduct? The extrinsic conduct is talking about their post-realization lives will be distinct and different. Their post-realization lives will be distinct and different. Do not be misled by that and do not expect a uniformity. Neither it has got nothing to do with any supernatural status or supernatural
Powers.
powers. It is because of the prarabdha vasana. That's what he summarized. That's what he said. It is because of the prarabdha vasana. That's why they say prarabdham, prarabdham, no. A very common word that is used in the everyday vocabulary also, no here. They say it is, yeah, okay, this is prarabdha. This is my prarabdha. Prarabdha means that which got to be exhausted by experience only, and while you are experiencing it, it doesn't sprout any further. That is prarabdha. Prarabdha vasana is like a burnt seed. You can't get anything new out of it. It will not produce anything further. That is prarabdha vasana. It's like a burnt seed. You can't you can't do anything. You can't do anything out of it. You just exhaust it. That's all. You can only exhaust it, but it will not germinate into
Seed.
it will not germinate into the next cycle, or it is burnt. So what is prarabdha vasana? Understand prarabdha vasana as a
Seed.
burnt coffee seed. You can have a coffee, that's all. But you can't plant that and create another. You can't plant that seed and create another coffee plant out of it. You can enjoy that coffee, but you can't create another coffee plant out of it. That is called prarabdha vasana. Extrinsic conduct differs because of the differences of prarabdha vasana. That is the topic. Is extrinsic conduct. Clear? This is the topic. Is extrinsic. we conclude for with this. We conclude for today, and we continue further on the impact of world on him and his impact on world, and we'll continue. There are two more topics. His impact of the world. How does he impact the world, and how does the world impact him? That is the difference. Prasad, சொல்லுங்க. I think somebody has to unmute you. R.D. Prasad, unmute.
Prasad, please present.
Yeah. Okay. So, Hari Om. Now, this the Prarabdha Vasana gives an understanding about these expressions of the realized person. That is one thing we have understood that.
Yes.
With reference to the same thing individually for the lay persons like me,
Yes.
we understand the Prarabdha Vasanas. We know the Prarabdha Vasanas depending upon our gunas, nature, and things like that. We have an idea, but we do not have an idea of what are the total Sanchita Vasana, aggregate Sanchita Vasanas. We do not have an idea at all.
Yeah.
And in my understanding, the Sanchita Vasanas should be much more in quantum than the Prarabdha Vasana. That is one thing. And we don't know them. But as per this analysis, we understand that they can be eradicated with tapas and knowledge. But is it a blessing that we do not know the Sanchita Vasanas and we can just within the lifetime we do tapas, clear Sanchita Vasanas and work on the Prarabdha Vasana? This is what I want clarifications.
Yeah. See, as far as the lay person is concerned, there is no distinction in Sanchita and Prarabdha. If I can add or delete, then Prarabdha doesn't fit for me at all. If by being indulgent and indisciplined, I can reduce my lifetime, or by being disciplined, I can increase my lifetime, then it is not Prarabdha. So for a lay person, the concept of Prarabdha Vasana doesn't fit at all, is not applicable at all to a lay person first. It is exclusively applicable only for it is exclusively applied only to describe the life of the person post-realization,
Status.
before they die. So it is very clear there. Why? Because in our case, in a layperson case, we can add or delete. It's not a burnt seed. It's the seed that has the potential to germinate. Since it has the potential to germinate, we don't fit under the category of Prarabdha at all. That is as far as the Prarabdha Vasana is concerned for the layperson.
Okay.
Okay, Prasad, still now?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah. Till now it's okay.
yeah. Now comes the next one. Sanchita is unknown. Sanchita Vasanas are unknown.
Yes.
Now, when you are eradicating the Sanchita Vasana, you are eradicating it because it has not yet gathered momentum. Knowledge being a powerful entity, it can eradicate that. It has not yet gathered momentum. It is there, but doesn't have enough power in it to manifest. Since it has not gotten that power, we can eradicate it at the level of Vasana level itself, it can be eradicated. And you can eradicate something at the level of the Vasana only by knowledge and understanding. We say knowledge and understanding, tapas and all that is included in that. You don't have to, whenever we say knowledge and understanding, what is included is tapas and all that is included in that. Why it can, how does it get eradicated? Because it has not yet gathered enough
Momentum.
because the strength is so less, it can be conquered, it can be eradicated. Because the Vega, to take the words from the Bhagavad Gita, the Vega is so, there is the potential, but the Vega of it is so less. Just as it's a disease that is so, the intensity of the disease is so less that medicine can cure it permanently. You really don't have to go through that physical pain of the disease. It's like that. Knowledge eradicates it at that level. Are you able to follow? So,
Yes.
so what does knowledge do? Knowledge eradicates it at the level of before it gathers momentum. How
Seed
does
level, at the level of seed.
it is? The seed is there. How does the seed gather momentum? What do we do that it gathers momentum?
We had
என்ன பண்றோம் நம்ம that it is gathering momentum? What is it that we are doing that it is gathering momentum? Yayato
Nurturing.
Vishayan Angasteshu Upajayate 62-63. Chapter 2, 62-63. Yayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Upajayate Gat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Vijayate, etc., etc., etc. So, how is it that you are, what is it that you are doing to increase the momentum?
constant association.
By you constantly thinking about it, by you feeding it, Yayatah, by you constantly feeding it. So Sanchita becomes stronger and stronger and stronger only when you feed it. Through knowledge and understanding, you stop feeding it, it dies away very soon. It is exactly like, see, you have been watering the plant. One day you stop watering the plant. Will the plant die immediately? Because of the previous watering, it will continue to be green for a while. Eventually, it dies. But for all practical purposes, what do you understand? That day you have stopped watering, death has started. Death has started for the plant the day you stop watering. But for you to see it takes,
Time.
that is called realization. Meaning, you stopped watering it. Meaning you stopped, you don't feed those thoughts anymore. You don't act according to those thoughts anymore. Therefore, what happens? Starts dying. Very soon, all Sanchita gets exhausted. Then you become self-realized. You can never know the quantum. You can never know the quantum of desires. You can never know whether it is 100 or 1250 or 1875. You cannot know it like that. Why? Why you cannot know it like that?
Because of no momentum, no.
All desires, the root of all desire is being avidya, root of all desire being ignorance, the primary root and the secondary root. The Sanchita is not by numbers, because what is the root of it? The root of it is ignorance. Since ignorance being the cause
Okay.
of all this, the numbers doesn't really make any. The numbers don't make any difference here. For eradication, you need not know the numbers. A beautiful example Ramatirtha gives. You know that rabbit and the centipede, Ramatirthas. Rabbit is the philosopher. Now, who made rabbit the philosopher? God only knows. Rabbit is the philosopher. And it looked at the centipede and told the centipede, how is it that you are walking so perfectly? Because a centipede has hundreds of legs. You know that, no? It has hundreds of legs. So the rabbit asked, how do you know which leg to, how do you know which leg to take first, which leg to, what should follow? How do you know all that? How are you managing all that? And the centipede started thinking how it is managing. What happened to the centipede after that? What happened to the centipede? It couldn't walk at all. It just couldn't walk. So it went back to the philosopher, rabbit, and said, keep your philosophy to, yeah, keep your philosophy to yourself. Your philosophy is not helping me in walking. In fact, I am so confused as to which leg to take first now. Numbers need not be known like that. How much of what is the quantum in terms of numbers and intensity? How many desires I have and what is the intensity of those desires? I need not know at all for eradication. Why? Because by knowing that is in no way going to help then eradication. For eradication, what is needed? Right? Knowledge is needed for eradication. Not knowing the quantum of the desires, not knowing the intensity of the desires. Therefore, in Vedanta, we really don't bother about how many desires you got and in varying degrees. Yeah. The 100 desires I have, and then those 100 desires have varying degree of intensity, and take up those which are very intense and start attending to that first, and then go slowly, or take up those which are less intense and finally come to the more intense ones. Eradication of vasanas doesn't work in this way. Eradication of vasanas happen when you move from one level to the next level. The dreamer becomes the waker. Dreamer becomes the waker. In that sense, transformation happens. Is it okay, Prasad? Yes. Yes. Chalunga. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Oh,
I got it. Only thing is now the clarity is that whatever the desires we pick up in this lifetime,
Yes.
they only go to add up in Sanchita, nothing to do with Prarabdha as such. Right?
Correct. See, desire is nothing but increasing, intensifying the sense of unfulfillment. That's all. What is desire? What is desire?
Filling up the void.
The sense of unfulfillment, wanting to fill that, no.
Yes. Got it.
Yeah, desire is nothing but a hope for happiness in the future. No, what is desire? Desire is nothing but a hope for happiness, a hope of contentment in the future. That's what desire is all about. Desire are the ways by which the unhappy mind thinks that it is going to gain happiness. Correct? Dalandana desire. Desire is the way the
And the
unhappy.
knowledge gives that
Yes. Desire
and
is
the
the way.
knowledge gives that we are content already.
Correct. That is how knowledge removes it. When knowledge comes and removes these, the desires, the intensity goes on. The intensity of desiring goes on reducing.
Decreasing.
Decreases. Correct. Correct. That's how it shows. That's how knowledge helps in the removal of desires. Vasanas. So there's no need to know the intensity
Thank
of
you.
desires or the number of desires. For all boils down to what? The unhappy mind thinks that this is the way to be happy. Desiring is the way to be happy. That is what the unhappy mind believes. Desire is nothing but a hope of happiness in the future. That's what desire is all about. Now, knowledge, by continuously educating us on this desiring, the Sanchita goes on. Sanchita goes on reduced. And then it also talks about the temporary nature of it. It talks about the futility of it. Actually, it doesn't talk about the futility. It says anything temporary is futile. It doesn't say it is futile. It says anything temporary is futile, because anything temporary cannot give you permanency. Therefore, it doesn't say it is futile. It says it is temporary, and anything temporary is bound to be futile.
Futile.
Futile in the sense of what? To permanency. Are you able to follow? So in that
Yes.
way, knowledge, what it does, goes on impinging on the Sanchita as it were. Every reflection, every class, every study, every reflection impinges on the, at the Vasana level, it impinging, and then the transformation happens. Is it okay, Prasad?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes. Yes. We will conclude with this, and then we'll continue next week with the same topic, the same chapter, the state of self-realization. Prasad, just understand it like this. Anything temporary is futile. By continuously impinging this, what happens? Anything that is temporary is futile. And then you look around, everything is, the doer is temporary, the doing is temporary, the result is temporary, everything is temporary. So by default, what happens? By default, what happens? You lose value for that. When you lose the interest, and when you lose the value, and when you are losing the interest, the vasanas are getting reduced. That's how the intensity of the vasanas are getting reduced. It gets reduced across the board for all desires. Are you able to follow now? It reduces the intensity of all desires across the board, not of any specific desire. For desire cannot be eradicated like that. Specific color you cannot eradicate. You can only en bloc, you can reduce the intensity. That's how it works. Clear? Okay, Prasad? Yeah. Thanks. With this we conclude for today, and we continue next.